Okay, before I begin, let me say that I do not want you to believe anything that I'm about to say or show you in this video. What I want you to do is think about it. Now, I've been looking at the DutchSinse YouTube channel. Here I'm going to concentrate on a single video of his where he provides his truth on HAARP. Okay, let's dive in. HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. What is it? You may or may not know that radio and radar typically works through line of sight. This means that all things being equal, the receiver has to be able to see the transmitter. This is why our aerials are on top of our houses, our satellite dishes point at the satellite, and our TV and mobile phone masts are so tall. The curvature of the Earth limits the distance over which the transmitter and receiver can stay in line of sight. However, this limitation is not an absolute. At the lower frequency end of the electromagnetic spectrum used for radio broadcasting, perhaps confusingly called high frequency HF and also known as shortwave, the transmitted radio waves can reflect off the ionosphere and thus be used for over-the-horizon communication. The ionosphere is a level of the atmosphere that is ionized by the sun's incoming radiation. Ionization means that this region of the atmosphere is an electrically charged plasma and as such can affect electromagnetic radio waves. But the ionosphere is not a predictable layer with predictable qualities. It is not like bouncing radio waves off a steel wall at a fixed altitude, and therefore it cannot be relied upon to propagate the HF radio signals consistently or reliably. It has different characteristics at different levels, is very different at night than during the day, and is affected by the seasons, variations in solar activity, etc. And this is where HAARP comes in. The idea behind HAARP is to artificially stimulate the ionosphere using radio technology and then monitor how it reacts, thus providing valuable information on how radio waves are affected by varying conditions, with the promise that future mitigation of these problems will be more effective. There is also a potential future where manipulation of the ionosphere could provide a temporary artificial layer with consistent and predictable propagation characteristics. The benefits of this are potentially enormous. If we had robust and reliable ground-based systems that could transmit radio signals globally, they could replace the very expensive satellites that are required to do that same job currently. And there is military interest as well, specifically for the potential of using very low frequency VLF waves. The lower the frequency, the longer the wavelength. And these VLF wavelengths can be tens of kilometers and require an antenna of that length to transmit. Manipulating the ionosphere is a way of creating an atmospheric antenna capable of producing these frequencies wavelengths. The military use of VLF is that it can penetrate water and solid ground and can thus be used to communicate globally with submarines and also map underground facilities, bunkers, etc. And that is what HAARP is. Very exciting possible uses, and one day we may well take the technology for granted as we now all take for granted the resonant cavity magnetron that was developed to allow high-frequency radar systems to more readily detect aircraft during World War II, but now sits in the corner of your kitchen and goes bing, tell you that supper is ready. We now leave the real world and enter DutchSinse world. DutchSinse is going to explain US Patent 5041834 to us. But before he does, let me give you a short précis and urge you to download the patent yourself. Just Google it and you can read the PDF. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, but let's clarify this one a little bit. It is a bit busy, and in this first edit we have conventional use of the ionosphere to propagate radio waves. The radar, 4, bounces its beam off the ionosphere, 3, and detects the over-the-horizon target aircraft, 5. And you can see that in the original patent illustration. And for my next edit, here you can see the artificial ionospheric mirror, AIM. It's used to simulate the ionosphere, and the radar, 4, bounces its beam off the AIM, 2, and detects the over-the-horizon's target aircraft, 5. Also, transmitter 6 bounces signals off the AIM, 2, which are received at a remote over-the-horizon receiver, 7. And so back to the original patent illustration and a verbatim quote from the patent itself. Quote, "The heater antenna 1 is an array which can be used to focus energy at varying altitudes and elevations to tilt the AIM 2 using phase and frequency control. The AIM 2 simulates the ionosphere 3, which is also used to detect over-the-horizon targets 5. In addition, the AIM 2 can reflect radio signals transmitted from a transmitter 6 to a receiver 7 over long distances." End quote. I hope that's clear. There's no black magic here. The patent is describing a method whereby an area of the atmosphere at a height of 60 to 61 kilometers could be manipulated into an electrically charged plasma to artificially simulate the ionosphere for the purposes of allowing over-the-horizon radio and radar capabilities. Okay, now let's see how DutchSinse uses 2 + 2 = 5 conspiranoid logic to distort this patent beyond recognizability.
Here's the first HARP patent that I have listed on here.
No, Dutch, this is not a HARP patent, and you writing HARP on it doesn't make it a HARP patent.
And I'm sure there are more, but this is just several of the important ones. And here it is. This should debunk anybody who says that it's only for the ionosphere. Artificial ionospheric mirror composed of a plasma layer which can be tilted. And you can read all this, and I'll just read it to you. This invention relates to generation of an artificial ionospheric mirror, an AIM, or a plasma layer in the atmosphere.
No, Dutch, there's no emphasis there. It's an artificial ionospheric mirror or plasma layer. It's not either or. It's the same thing.
Now, just stop right there. A plasma layer in the atmosphere. Okay, and there is no plasma layer in the atmosphere. It has to be created.
That's correct, Dutch, which is why somebody's gone to all the trouble of creating a patent to show how it's done.
And the way you create a plasma field in the atmosphere is through spraying of certain particles up in the atmosphere that aid in frequency manipulation to cause a layer of plasma.
No, Dutch, the way you create the plasma layer is by following the details of this patent. No spraying, no chemtrails, none of your little fantasies. Just follow the patent.
And that's the wave. See these waves here?
I see a wavy line, Dutch, and those of us that have read the patent know that it's there to represent the ionosphere.
That's the wavy HARP cloud that we all see from time to time, and they call it HARP clouds now because they form in a wave. Then what they do is through a series of ground-based systems, HARP, this would be HARP right here, the grid, it projects up into the atmosphere and it projects down to, this is the tilted mirror. So they create this with spraying, they're able to create a tiltable mirror.
They're spraying up there at the wavy line, which is creating a tilted mirror down what? Try reading the patent and it'll all become clear.
Depending on which way they manipulate it with frequency to reflect down to a house.
No, not a house, Dutch. That's the transmitter station, as detailed in the patent, which we have read.
Or to another dish.
No, not to another dish, Dutch. That's your bog standard target acquisition radar, as per the patent.
That reflects higher up into the cloud itself, back down to planes which are flying beneath.
No, Dutch. You're simply making it up as you go along now, based on pretty pictures, without having taken any time at all to read the detailed description of what those pictures mean.
Okay, so let's go on. The AIM is used like the ionosphere to reflect RF energy over great distances. A tiltable AIM is created by a heater antenna controlled in phase and frequency. The heater antenna is the ground-based system.
No, Dutch. The heater antenna is the heater antenna. What you're pointing at is a target acquisition radar.
The dish, the HARP ring that we're seeing. And they're launching it from HARP or from other facilities. It comes back down to the ground-based system that then relays it on. And so we're seeing these relay systems pop up from time to time at different cities and different spots. They've apparently put them at NEXRAD sites.
Utter nonsense. NEXRAD is weather radar. It has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with HARP and absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with this system.
Let me continue on. The heater antenna phase shift scans a beam to paint a plasma layer. In other words, it scans out a beam, and we see the beams in what several of the HARP researchers call beam attacks.
HARP researchers sounds like a misnomer. Beam attacks? What's this, Star Trek?
And it's not actually an attack now, I think we can determine. It's actually part of the same system. Frequency is changed to refocus at continually higher altitudes to tilt the plasma layer. Okay, and that explains our concentric rings inside of each other. As they go up, they change frequency, and it goes basically through the spectrum.
What does that even mean, Dutch? You're just throwing words out randomly.
Now, okay, that's this patent here, and they've got a couple diagrams, how it's the control module, focus points, that kind of stuff. But I want to take you back now and take you one patent down. Is it still part of this first one? Maybe it is. Ah, okay, it is. It's in the first patent still. Great. Okay, see this here? See this square and how it's being projected down from 22?
No, Dutch. I see how the square is projecting up to point 22, as per the patent, and I quote, "Simulation shows that when an array 20 is focused at a point 22, electrical field power peaks at the focal point." End quote.
See if they have 22 labeled on here. They don't have 22 labeled on here. So there is pages missing, of course. They're probably classified.
No, Dutch, there are no pages missing and nothing is classified. You just have to read the patent. I just quoted from it, telling you about 22.
But this is supposed to be the atmosphere up here. This is a point of reflection down here.
No, Dutch, you have it completely arse about face. I shall quote from the patent. Figure 6 illustrates creation of a non-inclined AIM layer. The heater array 30 is first focused at point 31.
Okay? And look what it projects down into, a square. Here's the wavy clouds up above. This represents the different waves in the clouds, the HARP cloud. And look what it does. They reflect it down in a tiltable mirror, and it comes down to the ground in a square fashion. They show it here multiple points, like a staircase or a sawtooth pattern.
No, Dutch. If you read the description of this illustration, you will show that it's indicating how a stepped and therefore angled aim is projected by progressive sweeps from the heater array.
And then multiple squares down below. XYZ axis, of course. Axis. And you can see it. It's right here in a diagram.
A diagram which is of no use to you, Dutch, because you neither understand it nor can be bothered to read the description of it, which is available in this patent.
How they project a tiltable mirror to reflect a HARP frequency, which is broadcast from a square station. The square station comes up, bounces back down to the ground, where it's picked up by a receiving station, the circular station, and then relayed on.
No, Dutch, you're now talking complete and utter gibberish. There's nothing I can comment on because nothing you're stating has any relevance or is based on anything within this patent or within reality.
So that explains why we see a square overlay on top of a round ring return.
No, Dutch. The square overlay is missing data on a weather map. The round ring return is either radar anomalies, transcription anomalies, or rendering anomalies on weather projections. And none of that has anything at all to do with AIM, which is being discussed in this patent.
They're beaming it down to the round receiver. The round receiver is sitting there like a catcher's mitt, waiting to catch this square frequency to relay it on. So anyways, there's a lot of good reading over here. You can just poke through these patents. There's all kinds of different stuff.
I think we'll leave it there. Dutch is right, there is a lot of interesting reading there if this is an area that interests you, although it's very evident from this that either he never read it or is deliberately distorting it, and equally evident that his disciples choose not to read it. I think I've done all I can on this video. All his other videos are based on this ridiculous idea about HARP rings, scalar squares, etc. If this hasn't debunked it for you, I don't know what else I can do. Thanks for watching. Bye.